Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the podcast. This is our penultimate episode for season 2. We got one more after this, and then we will be shutting it down for a brief period of time, and then coming back with volume 3. Uh, So, yeah, it's been a fun ride so far. Excited to keep it going. Let's jump in. My name is Juan, as always, here with my main brosif, Kevin.
Hey, everybody.
And we like movies. If this is your first time listening and you are unfamiliar, we invite you to go back and listen. Check out the different reviews that we've done in special episodes. We've got a hefty catalog for you to check out. And make sure to follow us, subscribe, like, comment if you want to give us feedback or you want to start a conversation, and share with others. If you like what you hear, there might be someone out there in a galaxy not too far away that might appreciate being informed. So we would certainly appreciate that. Um, so yeah, on on this edition of the podcast, we have Kevin's pick. He's got something juicy for us. The film is Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3.
Three.
Again, this was Kevin's pick. Before we jump in, I'll just tell you a few things about the film for those who don't know. Written and directed by James Gunn, produced by Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios. Stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Karen Gillan, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Will Poulter, Sean Gunn, Sylvester Stallone, to name a few. Chukwudi Iwuji, Nathan Fillion, Palm Clementif. She's a big one. She's part of the Guardians. Let's see. Distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. Released on April 22nd. Wait, what is this? Disneyland Paris. Okay,
No, that
I
was
guess
Disney.
that
It was
was
May
okay.
here.
May 5th, 2023, release date in the United States. Running time 150 minutes. Budget $250 million. Box office just under 850 million. So has not broken the billion mark. Let's see what else. 81% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, 94% audience score for the film. Let me see if there is a tagline for this film. It's time to face the music. Did you know that was the tagline, Kevin?
Now that you said it, it sounds familiar, but I would not have. I was trying to guess the tagline. I was like,
Okay,
oh,
you
no.
didn't know. It's time to face the music. And I guess, yeah, just a brief description or synopsis says, still reeling from the loss of Gamora, Peter Quill rallies his team to defend the universe and one of their own, a mission that could mean the end of the Guardians if not successful. Anything I'm missing, Kevin, that you'd like to add?
Only thing is, I did think the tagline was "once more with feeling," but I think that was a secondary tagline. That's all.
I think you're thinking about a different movie altogether.
But yeah, but no, I got nothing else to add. I think you captured everything.
All right, so Kevin, why don't you go ahead and regale us by telling us why you picked this and giving us your initial thoughts.
I am Groot.
I think that sums it all up. But ultimately, like, I'm not gonna say why I picked it because, of course, I picked it because it's a third of the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Um, Going into, I saw this originally in theaters with the girls, with my daughters, and going into it, I was really I didn't like part two that much. I didn't hate it. I just thought it was there, so I was really hoping for a bounce back. And I watched it again even today. It Let me see. Yeah, it is probably the one of the top one or two best things that Marvel did in Phase Four because everything else was not that great, and it made everything else that I've seen besides Spider-Man: No Way Home, like, and probably WandaVision, like, look a lot worse by comparison. I thought this was really great. It reminded me why we liked Marvel movies. It had a lot of heart. It had a couple of little instances where, okay, I think their situations were a little forced. You know what I mean? Where they were trying to move the story along. But other than that, like, I thought it was great writing. I thought it was great dialogue. I thought character development went really well. I like some of the themes in the story about redemption, about getting a second shot, about you're more than where you came from, and it dealt a lot with overcoming trauma, not just with Rocket Raccoon, but Peter Quill, and just a whole bunch of people. You saw these broken people that were overcoming and having to deal with issues that they didn't realize necessarily in the beginning that they had. So
I mean,
go ahead.
you say it dealt with overcoming trauma.
Well,
That
dealing with
that's
trauma, dealing with trauma.
that's very. I mean, that's it's very surface level. It's not
Okay,
really,
okay.
in my opinion.
Well, I don't
Uh,
think we went into a deep dive on, you know, like, again, it's still a kids Marvel movie also, and it's for adults
F
too.
bomb.
But there was an F bomb. You know what I mean? That came out of
It's a very
nowhere.
big deal.
Oh yeah, that came out of nowhere. But I think it was big. Like, when I say it was dealing with trauma, it was, while they may have not necessarily dealt with it and overcame it, it was coming to the acceptance that, hey, I have something I have to work on here. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess.
Like, it started down the
Yeah,
path. Like, eventually, spoiler alert, like, if we get the Star Lord independent movie, hopefully they'll deal with more than that, like more of his trauma and how he now is back home and dealing with his grandfather and a life that he was taken from.
it was just it. I mean, I
What did you
agree.
think, Juan?
No, no, I think what you're saying is accurate. It just was not. It was so sort of secondary to what was going on with Rocket that with Rocket Raccoon that it was almost you could have missed that. You know
Yeah,
that it was you really had to. I mean, you said by now this is your third or fourth time viewing this.
yeah,
So in the midst of stuff going on with the high evolutionary and really what's the principal kind of issue that Rocket Raccoon is dealing with, the stuff with Peter Quill is just it felt to me like it was present, but again, in light of those things, it almost felt like it was in the background.
okay. Well, I
Um,
say that's fair because Rocket was front and center on this, even though he
yeah,
was out of it for most of the movie. Like, he was the impetus for everything that was pushing everything forward in the story.
yeah. So why don't I go take my turn and then maybe you can tell us more about what happens in the film for those who don't know, and and yeah, don't mind maybe certain things being spoiled for them. But anyway, for me, Yeah, I like the film. I can say that of the ones that I've seen, which do not include Spider-Man: No Way Home, because I haven't seen that yet. Um, but of the ones that I have seen, this is definitely the best of the bunch of relatively recent Marvel movies and shows. Um, but it was entertaining. It felt very very long, um, and I think for me, again, I don't. It was entertaining. It was good. I think that I had very high expectations based off of things I had heard from other people, and maybe even just the marketing campaign for it, and even just this being James Gunn and this group's final hurrah. Expectations were pretty much through the roof. Um, there were some things I wasn't a very huge fan of. Um, Overall, yeah, I thought it was good and entertaining, but I do feel that it kind of, if we're talking about maybe like the gold standard of Marvel, which for many people would be like Infinity Wars, Endgame, even Captain America: Winter Soldier, and maybe one other that someone might want to include in there. For me, it still falls short of that. It still falls short, I think, of the first one. Where
Oh
um,
yeah.
even that one, which was kind of so I don't groundbreaking is not the right word, but in a way, sort of innovative with the way that they use music. Ever after the first one, it all just felt forced, like just trying to recreate that formula, which hasn't quite worked as well since the first one. And maybe it was because of those specific songs, or maybe because it was just so unexpected and so new. Um, so it feels a little kind of overdone and stale, a little bit, that aspect of it. Um, but yeah, outside of that, I mean, performances were fine. It was kind of it was kind of weird seeing Rocket Raccoon um, kind of be part of the first half of the movie, but not really. I mean, it was even a different voice actor. It was actually Sean Gunn who voiced him when he was
Oh,
younger.
when he was a little one. Yeah.
So yeah, when he was a little one. So it was good to get his backstory, but it was weird, like for the character to kind of really be out of the movie for that first half. Um, I can talk a little bit more later about Adam Warlock, and I wasn't a big fan of the way that he was represented or portrayed in this movie. But anyway, yeah, those are just my initial thoughts. Maybe maybe good, bordering, or reaching for great, but falling short.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Like to me, like the best Marvel movies were, the first Iron Man, the first Avengers movie. We have Winter Soldier and Civil War, the first Guardians movie. So I wouldn't say this is better than the first Guardians movie because it's one of my favorite, not just Marvel movies, but one of my favorite movies. I've watched it 1,000 times.
Hmm.
Its replay value is really good. It's still up there. Like I said, it's not top five, but it's definitely up there with all those movies. Right, just that level right below it,
Hmm.
which is saying a lot more than the recent stuff that's come out. I haven't seen Quantum
Hmm.
Mania yet, but there's a reason why I keep dragging my foot on it.
Hmm.
But overall, what's this? What didn't you like about Adam Warlock's character? Like I can see why you did, but I want to see what you didn't like about him.
All right, so for anyone listening, let me just start off by saying that I did not read comic books growing up. So what I see from these characters on the screen is what I know about them, unless I, do just a search. Watch Mojo does good background on characters. If you're ever curious just about the history of a character in comic books or stuff like that, or I'll ask Kevin to fill me in.
Mm.
So I don't know how faithful this representation is to who this character is. I felt it's an awesome character. Haven't have been excited to actually see this character on screen since the end credits of the first one. But it was the first one, right? Not the second one
Second
that had
one
that
where
end
that
credits.
no, the
Oh, it was the
second one
second
where
one.
the cocoon, yeah.
Okay. Um, but so yeah, awesome character. Loved it when he came on the screen, but then did not like that after his introduction, he was basically just kind of like a buffoon and just comic relief. And I get that, his mother, quote unquote mother, explained that he was like half baked. He was released before he was in his
Mature.
full form. But I just, and even, so the character has a sort of redemptive arc, right? And he changes. I felt like if they would have taken that character more seriously, that would have been, I would have approached that in a much more dramatic fashion, because in the end, he ends up doing something really important. Um, but I just felt like throughout the movie, he was this incredibly powerful character, but he was just utilized as a as comic relief, and as just like pretty much like a buffoon. So I just felt, I just questioned that choice
Mm.
and felt like it just could have been better if if they would have just instead approached it maybe more seriously, and really approached him as a threat, almost like Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Um, yeah, I just felt like he was just too silly, and not really intimidating or threatening enough after his introduction.
All right, I can see that. Like he's not at all like his comic book character because he was Hash,
Yeah.
but I think what they were going for was like, oh, he's still childlike. He's like a child Superman with childlike, behavior and
Hmm.
tantrums. The one thing I kind of didn't like, which is what I felt like they were going for, he kind of felt a little redundant to being just like another version of Drax because I think like Drax is leaving, Batista's not going to be it. If they do another one,
If
now
you're
we have.
talking, I can't hear you. Your
Can you
screen
not?
froze.
Oh,
I
can you hear
got
me
you
now?
now. You're
All right.
back now. Yeah.
All right. So I was saying my problem with him because he wasn't much like the comic book was he felt a little redundant with Drax being a very
Mm.
like simple character. So if they're going to move forward, that oh yeah, Dave Bautista's not going to be in it anymore. Drax is he's retired. Now we have another simple character that we could again it could be for laughs, but he just felt a lot like Drax's character just with different powers. That's the only
Hmm.
quibble I had from him. I think Will Poulter did a really great job with him. Like he looked great. He
Hmm.
looked like a Superman type person. So whatever he did to get in shape looked fantastic. And
Hmm.
yeah, like I said, and they did force a little like when he went to go save Star Lord at the end, they had the little like Renaissance looking
Yeah.
finger touch part. And but like I
Yeah.
said, overall, like I liked him. I just thought he was a little redundant because he was like Drax who didn't understand things and would mess up stuff.
And then something that, just a little detail that really annoyed me, and that one of the final shots where they're kind of showing like the new Guardians, which includes, like
Yeah,
Adam Warlock and Sean Gunn's character. I don't know that
oh,
guy's name, Craggle or something.
Kraglin, I believe. Yeah,
Him, and they're all like running. Like, why is Adam Warlock running? He can
that
fly.
is Yeah, because I think because you see Rocket take off a little bit, I was like, it would have been so cool if he was just flying over them like a
Yeah,
Superman.
it was just
I
it
did
was so
not like that
dumb.
part. Yeah.
Why would he be running? Speaking of Drax, that was one thing I really did like was just how the angle that they took and kind of reminding us, that he was a husband and a father, and kind of emphasizing, uh, those fatherly characteristics about him and really highlighting that. I really liked that. I was surprised and kind of interested in, like, I felt like there was a subtle, or maybe not subtle, because it wasn't subtle, but kind of a veiled um, sort of message, or like addressing kind of like human trafficking,
Oh
which
yeah.
was, I don't know if that was intended, or if it's just a parallel that's not direct, but just in light of things going on in society today. Like, I was just like, oh, okay, I was not expecting, like a sort of veiled message about human trafficking, which I liked, and was really interesting. Kind of I thought the High Evolutionary was pretty good. um there was another scene like the one I just mentioned with Adam Warlock that really annoyed me with the High Evolutionary. Um, so it's the scene in which, um, right before when Rocket, scratches up his face.
Hmm.
I didn't understand why he was the one who ran in that moment. When he's like, and he even said, he's like, oh, I knew you were going to try this, or something like that. It's like, aren't you this kind of like dictator with seemingly hundreds of people at your command, that you go yourself? And I know with him and Rocket, like, it was very personal, that relationship, but it was still weird that he's the lone person running in there,
Because he
being
does
like,
call
"Ha, I
security.
got you. I knew
Yeah.
you." Right. So it was just like it was just something that needed to happen. It just didn't feel natural to, really what that character was supposed to be. Like, why would you go yourself? Why wouldn't you say to 10 guards, be like, "Hey, he's probably going to try to escape. Go down there and keep an eye on him."
Yeah, that's one of like three or four things that I felt were forced, and they just happened because the story needed it to happen. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I'm like, that was one of them when I said there was about two or three, maybe four things that I felt, all right, this is happening just so we can have this moment in the movie.
Hmm.
That was one. One that you mentioned with Drax was when they were like, "Oh, you think I'm stupid?" And I thought that was really great. And then all of a sudden, it led to him. Oh, he could speak to the children, and it just led up to that moment, like, "Oh, you never asked me if I could speak to them," and that felt like it was
Hmm.
forced. Because I thought it was a good scene, but then it after they had that moment, I was like, "Oh, it was just to have the little moment that, like, oh, you think I'm stupid, but you didn't even ask me if I knew how to do this,"
Yeah.
which to me devalued the scene a little bit. But getting back to Drax, like, I loved it. And again, it could be because I'm a dad, and the whole arc with him, where in the beginning he won't dance because that only idiots dance, he says, and then at the end when he's with the kids, he's dancing, and even with Nebula saying, you're not a destroyer, you're a father," and it does take it back to part one because all his anger and all his hatred for Ronan and for Thanos were all about losing his wife and kids, and
Hmm.
finding purpose in saying, you know what, I don't need to be out there. I can just stay here and help take care of these children,
Hmm.
which of course got me in the old. My daughters were like hugging me. I'm like, oh, my
Feels.
babies. Yeah, the old heart, the old
Got you in
ticker.
the feels.
Oh yeah, and then
Yeah.
we gonna say something?
I was waiting for you to finish your thought, man.
No, no, go ahead because I stopped because you went. That's my thought.
Uh, I really thought someone was gonna die, and
I
I
know.
had been I kind of had been sold on that, so I was expecting it. And of course, my initial thought was that it was going to be Rocket Raccoon, um, but that didn't happen. And then I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to be Peter Quill. And then that also didn't happen. But why didn't he wear his mask at all in this movie?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I wanted to believe there was an explanation that they took off too fast or something. Because remember, they weren't supposed to leave nowhere, and then they just ran off because they had no time. They're like, "We got to go. We got to get save Rocket."
But he didn't have it the whole movie.
Well, no, because in the beginning he was drunk when Adam Warlock
Yeah.
showed up, and then they start fighting him, and he goes into like this cardiac arrest. Rocket Raccoon goes into cardiac arrest. They're like, "We got 48 hours. We got to go." They didn't go back to grab anything. They only had what was
Yeah,
on them.
but in the first one, it's just like this thing that he hits, and then it forms on his face.
Yeah, but on the first one, he was on a mission. Like he was prepared. This one, and again, it may have been a little forced for story wise, but I think that's what the reasoning was that they didn't
Well,
actually go and grab their stuff.
that was annoying because it's like first of all, it's kind of iconic for the character.
It's like Superman without
And
his cape.
yeah, or like Iron. I wasn't it Iron Man 3 or Iron Man 2? Like there was one of them, or like which one? Oh, the one where they like played with that, right? And then he like ended up making a bunch of things because he didn't have access to his suit or something. It was the
Yeah,
second
part
one
three. No, it's part
where he
three.
broke into that. Oh, part 3.
Yeah,
Yeah, where they like kind of played off of that, like him not having the suit and still
yeah,
building a bunch of things. But yeah, it'd be like having an Iron Man movie without him ever being in his suit.
yeah.
It's like it was really weird. Like it really threw me off. I was like, how's he never in his mask? His helmet.
Like again, that's my
Didn't like
best.
that.
That's my best rationale for it was that they took off so fast. That's why they didn't have it,
Yeah,
and that's why they needed those little Power Ranger color jumpsuits to jump into space.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
will.
I don't know how I feel about Gamora, like with the Ravagers.
Well, first of all, that team of
Um,
Ravagers she's with, I want to see their movie
yeah,
because they looked awesome when they boarded that ship. They were just taking
yeah,
everybody out.
hmm
I was like, good lord.
yeah. Um, there's just so much in this movie, man, and so long. I also like had heard from quite a few people who watched it that they were like they were like really emotional about the movie,
Okay.
which I guess which led me to believe, that someone
Yeah.
died, and that's what triggered such emotions. But I never really felt anything that deep welling up
Well,
inside of me from anything that happened. I mean,
well, well.
I think they
First,
should have shown more about like what Rocket Raccoon actually went through.
yeah.
I felt a little shortchanged,
Okay.
that they really didn't. I mean, they only kind of hinted at it and showed you some things, but I think they um, yeah, still kind of skipped over some of the more maybe gruesome bits
Like
of that
like how
ordeal.
torturous it was for him. But
Yeah.
so you're saying you wish this movie you thought was long was even longer? I kid. That's a joke.
No,
I don't know.
no, not
You
at
wish they
all.
would have fitted in there better. But my
Yeah.
daughter Willow has cried every time we've seen it, and
When?
and not to shortchange because I know they're not main characters, but there are some deaths here. When Lila,
Oh yeah,
Floor,
those
and Teeth
characters.
die,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
she cries every time. She cries every time.
Yeah.
She also cries like, and I will say I did get emotional. Not so much the other times I watched it, but the very first time I saw it, when they reappear to him in the white light, and he's
Uh-huh.
like, "Can I go with you?" She goes, "Of course you can." And I remember thinking, "Oh, they're about to kill Rocket Raccoon," and I'm going to have to deal with my children explaining what's going on here, right? And then
Yeah.
they do another scene and they come back. She goes, but just not now. And you're like, oh, all right, they got me because I thought he was going.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, he's back. So
Yeah.
I did feel some feels there. And like I said, it wasn't like full on like crying or anything, but it did get a little bit emotional about. And he's like, why can't I go with you? Because you're not done yet.
Yeah.
And those scenes were emotional. That's exactly when my daughter just loses it every like 4 times in a row already. And the other ones
It
get
just
sad
felt
too.
to me like the emotional parts were a little watered down. Like
Okay.
almost like, you know, uh, violence in a PG movie. That
Sure.
it's people dying without any blood.
Sure.
Or stuff like that.
Oh,
So it kind of felt like there were moments where they could have just laid it on thicker.
yeah.
And so I just felt maybe they didn't go far enough. In really showing pain or sadness, or at least for me, maybe I'm a little
Sure.
cold hearted, but
But
yeah, it just felt a little watered down, and maybe what you're saying
oh,
about it being a kids movie, but
but like
um,
I don't necessarily think it's a kids movie, but they have to appeal to kids and to
yeah,
adults. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I understand what you're saying. It's like when there's a drug dealer, he calls everyone sucker instead of like, oh, you mother
yeah,
sucker.
right,
And so I mean nobody talks that way. So
yeah,
it is watered down, but there's people like me, like I'm taking my kids to see it because they want to see. That's why the F bomb in this movie was more like it wasn't really necessary. As an adult,
no,
man, I found it a little funny, but it wasn't necessary because I'm taking my kids.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And I know they were proud about being the first movie to be an F bomb, but my kids don't see Deadpool because I expect that language in Deadpool. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
It's just
And it's hard that
it's just
they
silly.
balance a fine line on everything else, except hey, we're just going to throw an F bomb in here.
Yeah, yeah, and even that situation didn't seem like it was that emotionally charged to just kind of inspire that naturally,
Yeah. But I think it
especially
was
when
like
it's so out of place.
yeah, and it was just frustration. Like you could have got your frustration. Let's just open the door. Like whatever. Like you
Yeah.
didn't have to throw it in. They did. I'm like, all right. My kids always do this one thing when we
Yeah.
watch a movie and there's a bad word. Like they literally said they're like they gasp like bad word. I'm like that's all I heard from them. I'm like okay.
Mm. um, I had something else that had sprung into my mind, but I can't think.
We
I
got like 12 other characters to
can't
cover. So
can't recall it at the moment. Uh, yeah. No, move on. What's next?
one of the other things I thought was really forced is the Mantis storyline at the end where she just she's gonna walk the universe trying to find herself with her 3 pet monsters. Like to me, that came
Oh
out of
yeah.
nowhere. Like that one was forced. She goes, "No, I need to know who I am." I was like, that literally didn't play at all. Like she's like, "I only did what Ego wanted or what the Guardians wanted." I'm like, "Oh my god!" I just felt that one was really forced. Like, hey, we have to give her an ending
I
now.
I watched the Christmas special right before, and
Okay.
then I went right into the movie, so I watched them both back to back. And maybe it's because of the absence of Gamora why Mantis had a bigger role, and also because, what they revealed about her being Peter Quill's sister.
Hmm.
But it was a little bit too much for her. For me, I should say. So, yeah, Gamora being so different, not really being a part of the group. Also, Rocket Raccoon not really being in the first half of the movie. Um, so yeah, they had to bring in another character a bigger role. I just think while I don't dislike her, she's a little annoying at times.
Yeah.
Like her voice, and even like her look, is kind of odd looking. So it to me is just the wrong character to have given such a bigger role. You still could have gone with her being the sister thing, but yeah, it was just I felt like too big of a role, not for that actress, but just for that character, which is just not to me. It's out of all those, probably my least favorite character. I really like
Huh.
Groot in this.
Oh yeah.
I would have liked even more Groot, because I felt like he was a little underutilized in the movie. Um, but but yeah, that was kind of my take on Mantis, and yeah, the end thing was just like whatever.
Like the problem with
Um,
Mantis
I also like
oh,
the yeah.
real quick before you go on your the problem with Mantis, until you mention you're her sister, and until like every time I watch it, until they mention it, I don't ever equate them to being brother and sister in this movie or the last one.
No.
Like even in the Christmas special, they don't have a dynamic like that at all. It's just
Hmm.
because they said it. And again, even when I was talking earlier, I didn't even remember that until you said it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a sister.
Yeah, but they did they like? I see. I only saw the second one once,
Oh, you
and
got to see it.
I
That's all
should
you
have
have to see.
I should have watched this. But like, didn't her and Peter Quill like share a moment like in part two,
Like what kind of moment? Like, hey, you're my.
or like they just bonded? No, I thought they bonded maybe a little bit
Well, no,
more.
there might have been like a little moment, but there was no actual like, you know what I mean? There's no actual thing that they went through and overcame together. You know what I mean? There
Right.
was no banter. Like you could see why like Peter Quill's close to Rocket and to Drax because they had all those moments, and
Hmm.
this just feels like Mantis always feels like she's with Drax or off the whatever, and then they come back and they're like, hey, there's no moments between her and Peter.
Yeah.
Even when she wanted to give him advice, she gave it to Drax to give it to him.
Yeah.
So we never have like, oh well, it's Peter and her like in the ship together, just talking and building
Yeah.
a relationship.
Yeah.
It's just they tell you. But what were you gonna say before I cut you off?
Um. No, I think that's a really good point about them never really having a moment. Um. And you could have easily, written that in, because even I guess in the Christmas special when she reveals it to Peter, there's just something about that moment and that reaction that it was just like, yeah, I'm just I'm not buying it, or it
But
just didn't feel organic. Um, yeah, it was like I think what you said. They just like kind of don't really have a lot of chemistry, those two characters.
yeah.
So it just really kind of like felt awkward. Um, and yeah, I mean they really didn't even continue to build much off of that in the third one.
Like I said, wasn't the biggest fan of the second one. It's there,
Why
but
why uh, why didn't you like the second one?
like it's not bad. It just exists like an episode. Like if it was a TV show, it'd just be an episode. Like I think the first one did
Mm,
really good with dealing with them and growth. The second one just happens so they could deal with Peter Quill's dad, introduce the sister. It doesn't really have much of a role, and then
yeah,
Yondu dies. And then the third one, I felt like
yeah,
this had a
that was
lot
the
in it.
best part of that one movie.
Yeah, Yondu. Well,
Yondu's part, yeah, that was
well,
the
it's
highlight
a
of that movie.
well, it's one of them. The opening scene with little baby Groot dancing was kind of cool, but
Okay.
there's not much for that movie. Like if we sat here and like, oh, what do you remember? Not much. I mean, because it's
Hmm.
okay. It's just to get everyone where they have to
Yeah,
be. And again, I'm not saying it's bad. There's people who love that movie. I just thought it's okay.
yeah,
Like it's forgettable.
yeah.
Like if you go from 1 to 3, that's fine too.
What were your thoughts on Nebula?
When you were talking about they could have given like a bigger role to somebody else, they could have given it to Nebula because she's shown a lot of
Hmm.
growth since she was just this hench woman, and
Hmm.
she grew a lot. And I don't know why I liked it, and my daughters do it every time we watch the movie when her and Gamora would just grunt at each other like, you know what I mean? Then they just
Hmm.
start grunting to each other all the time. They're like, and I did
Hmm.
I thought her and Gamora, even in this movie, showed more of a sister bond, a sibling bond than Peter and Mantis. But I just felt like
Hmm.
I wish they would have gone more into her because she became more Carrie. She was more of a hey, I want to look after the team because Peter's acting weird, everything's falling apart. And I do like the fact that she said, okay, I want to run nowhere. She's going to look after the city and help build that that society. Because she did start became a person who was somebody who was operated on, rejected by Thanos and all this stuff, and now she wants to take care of all these misfits.
Mm-hmm.
And I do wish we would have maybe had her even more involved than we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I thought she had a pretty big role, but yeah, I mean, certainly, I think I don't know. I guess yeah. I guess I kind of disagree a little bit. I felt like her role was big enough. Um, I think for me, the one that got
The Shaft.
underutilized that should have been used more was just Groot. I felt like there wasn't a lot of him
Well,
at all. Maybe
he was
yeah,
phenomenal when he went kaiju, when they broke into the High
yeah,
Evolutionaries thing, and he just
yeah,
started going nuts.
yeah,
And even when he jumped out, you saw the wings come out.
yeah.
Everything about him was great, and his ending, phenomenal.
So is that like did when that happened? I was like, whoa! Did they just like break a comic book law here or something? Like by having him say
No,
something other than "I am Groot"? Like that threw
no.
me off a little bit.
Okay, so what it is he says in reality, "I am Groot," but you know how everyone else hears him, and they
Uh-huh.
showed us even with Gamora. Gamora, like she goes, "Yes," he keeps saying the same thing. Y'all are just making it up. And then at the end, he goes, "I am Groot." She goes, "Yeah, it was good work." She goes, "Oh." She realized she could hear him now because she's bonded with him. So what that end is he's saying I am Groot, but now that we've gone on this journey with them, we can understand what Groot is saying.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember we all
Gotcha.
freaked out. We were like, "Whoa!" And then that's when I looked it up and like it that's what people were saying, and James Gunn confirmed it. He goes, "Yeah, you now the audience can understand what Groot is saying because of this journey that we've taken with them."
And so that's faithful to the comic books.
What basically because people understand him, so
Hmm. Okay. All
and
right.
stuff
That's
like that. He just
cool.
except if you're new, you don't understand him, and then eventually like everyone else understands him. Which is
Yeah.
there was a funny one when he's talking to Jean Grey, and there's a huge bubble with this whole speech he's giving, and then there's another word bubble above it, I mean over it that says "I am Groot." But then because she's reading his mind,
Hmm.
she can see everything else that's happening behind it,
Yeah.
which is a pretty cool thing.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Um, the another Earth or another world,
Counter Earth,
whatever that
Counter
counter
Earth.
Earth. Yeah, I don't think I liked that part of the movie, and even just that the way that whole thing played out with it was just out of place, and so they end up on this they enter this planet trying to find sort of like the headquarters for the high evolutionary. Drax forgets to put the cloak on, so they're seen. All these people freak out, um, but yet it isn't a bigger deal. Like it's still only a big deal in this neighborhood where like the neighbors are like looking through the window, like police aren't called, um, or military or anything like that. And then this one lady with this family inexplicably just kind of sympathizes with them, even though they can't understand each other at all. They speak a completely different language, but then they end up helping each other, and he takes her car, and like just that whole those scenes and just that part of the movie was like it just felt out of place, and it just I don't it didn't work for me.
I thought we were going to say is when they first were landing, the panda mowing his lawn, like
Hmm.
to me looked like a man in a panda suit. Like out of all the good graphics they did, like I did not like that one.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you ever seen the Island of Dr. Monroe.
Yeah. I
Like,
haven't seen it, but I
okay,
know of it. Yeah.
I felt like because they're all half like all these experiments. That's what I felt we were seeing with like the bad ears and everything. I'm like, okay. I thought the war pig and the security that High
I
Evolutionary
liked
done.
War Pig. Yep.
I thought they were really well done. I was like, okay, now this
Yeah.
is something that looks totally like
Yeah.
hitting you in the face, as opposed to the society. I'm like, all right, this is they're just people with like some bat ears on. But
Yeah.
War Pig and the other one, like
Yeah.
Rocksteady and Bebop, that's what my daughter called them.
Yeah.
Like they were awesome. And
Yeah.
to
I
answer why
agree.
no one was called is High Evolutionary already knew they were coming, and remember it's a trap, it's a face off. So that's
Mhm.
why they were waiting for them to leave their ship so Warpig can go and retrieve the rocket.
Okay. Makes sense. Um, Island of Dr. Moreau was actually an inspiration for this.
Oh, see, I did not know that, but yeah, but it's
Yeah.
with Marlon Brando, and I remember seeing it in theaters, and that's
Hmm.
what a lot of these things reminded me of. And again, it's not bad. I wish they would have pushed it more so they didn't just look like humans with like bat ears. They look like,
Hmm.
let's say, a bat that
Yeah.
became a human, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Because yeah,
Yeah.
because like that first experiment that High Evolutionary messed up on in front of Rocket, that that turtle that was becoming human, that thing looked like it was gonna look crazy, and then it went
Yeah.
crazy, and then they killed it. Like I wanted stuff like that looked way out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and I get it because they wanted, I guess a wider appeal, but I think this movie would have benefited from going darker just a little bit. You don't have to go, deep, deep dark, but there's some things where it could have used a little bit of darkness.
Like there was that one animal,
To
I think Gamora, was it Gamora or Mantis that freed this little sheep looking thing. I don't
Mhm.
know if you remember. It was like an ugly looking mutant thing, and
Yep, yeah. Oh
that
yeah,
was
it
actually,
said thank you.
yeah, it was Pete Davidson, I believe. That's it. That was voiced him.
Uh
It
huh.
was supposed to be Stan Lee, but he passed away, I believe. And
Uh
then
huh.
he just says thank you, and I was like, all right, now that's what I was looking. I was looking for some weird stuff like that, not
Yeah,
necessarily that, but something like that.
yeah. Or even again with the torture scene, with the
Mm.
torture stuff. Um, could have just gone a little bit darker. Even at the beginning with like Peter Quill like being drunk, I didn't really buy him. Like it could have been a little bit darker to like where he's maybe teetering on alcoholism, or something like that, or like his depression is like really dark, so there's like emotional things, potentially emotional things that they just don't go deep enough in them to give them, like a more weight, throughout the story, um, to really kind of hit harder at times.
Well, yeah, and it is the Marvel way because even in Iron Man 2, like they were trying to do the storyline where Tony's drinking too much and he has an alcoholism problem. He's an alcoholic,
Hmm.
but they watered that down because you also have kids. Because even when you were saying, it was like, yeah, it would have been cool if like he was teetering with his gun and he wants to like end it all or whatever. Like he's really depressed. But then I was like, oh, I don't think
Hmm.
it's for little kids also.
Hmm.
Like they need to entertain children
Yeah.
and adults, and then again, if I'm complaining about the F bomb, I'm like, I would have been like, I don't think my kid needs to see somebody wanting to blow their brains out.
No, but
No, but that's just me.
again, and that it doesn't have to be that,
Yeah.
that example, but there are. I mean, you when you compare, and this is interesting actually because I guess the other day, um, I mean, Ophi, she's gonna be 3 in a couple weeks, and
Woo
she
woo.
doesn't listen to a lot of Disney movies, or Disney music. I've tried to play some for her. I mean, she liked the Encanto music for a while, um, but she does like "I Just Can't Wait to Be King"
Nice.
from Lion King,
She has good taste. That's
and
why.
I guess they were listening to it the other day, and my wife came back and she was like, uh, I guess she was like, "Oh, maybe Daddy will let you watch the movie, when we get home." And then she asked me, and I was like, "No, she cannot watch that movie, not yet." Because it's pretty dark at times. I mean, not only with the hyenas and all that, but with Mufasa's death, and I do remember, even hearing how, um, you know, Disney in a lot of their movies, didn't shy away from that, and kind of maybe even traumatized children. And so I just think she's a little bit too young to be like, what's happening to him, and why is Simba like going under his paw, and why is he sad? Like, for me, she's just a little bit too young for that. But clearly, I mean, I was definitely older when that movie came out, but those movies are for kids. And I mean, we could argue if,
Huh.
when is too young for that, but still, those movies are meant for children. And so I think it proves that, some I mean, if she was a little bit older, I think it's a great conversation to have, through those scenes and through what's happening there, to talk about that. Just maybe not at, almost 3 years old. But anyway, I think it proves a point that there is an age and there is a way to show some of those, dark things, in a way that it's still maybe not what we're talking about with Rocket Raccoon and the graphic of like his torture. Like, okay,
Hmm.
that I get, but maybe, yeah, if Peter was an alcoholic or something like that, like, I do think there are ways to toe that line a little bit better than kind of how watered down some of those things felt in this movie.
Well, I do agree with that. It's just that those movies came out in the early '90s, mid '90s, and now
Yeah,
today, like everyone's so much more up in arms about what they show.
yeah,
Because I like how like I and also this is my little hypocrisy. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want my kids seeing that, but took them to go see John Wick 4 in theaters. You know what I mean? I'm
yeah,
like because we know what they can handle, and and ultimately it has to be no matter what you watch, it's up to the parents. Like you said, like yeah, maybe three's a little too too young for you to watch. The Lion King, and nowadays, like I said, sensibilities are so much different that it's harder because you have and again, I don't know James Gunn from anyone, right? So I don't know what
yeah,
his mentality is. I'm guessing he's more of liberal from what I've seen stuff. So he may just be like, hey, I don't think they should do this, and those are just his opinions on that, or I might be totally wrong.
yeah.
I don't know if I made sense right there.
Well, I think there. Well, just to continue that conversation, I think there probably is an age that is just too young, but I think also, like, people know their children, right? And they all,
Hmm.
you also know, you know what they've been exposed to or what they've
Hmm.
experienced, up to a certain point, and so
Hmm.
maybe what they're able to handle, or what conversations they're ready for, like if yeah, perhaps
Like,
if your child is still a little bit young, but they've had a grandparent that has died or whatever
yeah.
that they were close with, maybe they're ready for a conversation that is sparked off of Mufasa dying
Huh.
in Lion King or something like that. So I think, yeah, that if you're a parent that's
Huh.
involved and knows your children pretty well, then maybe you also know, yeah, what they're ready, what they're prepared for, also just based off of conversations that you're having with them, and again, what they've experienced or what they've been exposed to, perhaps.
I can tell you with my daughters, all of them, between the ages of 3 and 5, we have a conversation about death.
Hmm.
I remember having it with Ava and Phoenix together. Like we were driving home from school. I'm like, "Hey, girls, let's just start." And we just started talking about death and what happens. Because I guess my mentality, and it still is I rather have this conversation with them when I'm not grieving, like the passing of my mother. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
if my mom's passing and I'm grieving, now I'm grieving and I need to explain to my children what happened.
yeah,
It I think adds more to it. So I remember just doing, and man, I was just like, all right, well, do you know what death is? You know what happens? We talked about the spirit going with the Lord, all this stuff. And literally, I'm like, well, one day, like it'll be far from now. Like it'll happen. Like one day I will leave you and hopefully you can. Dude, all you heard was tears in the car. They're like, we don't want you to die. I'm like, I'm not dying anytime soon, I hope. And they were just, because again, they're 3 and 5. So to them, there was no logic in me having this conversation at that time with them.
Yeah.
But then they cried and we got some ice cream and then we talked about it some more later. And they were better. I guess it was better than after school when they're tired and, hey,
Yeah.
we got to kill 30 minutes. Let Daddy tell you about death and what happens to the body, ashes to ashes. But
Yeah, no.
it did
Go
come in
ahead,
handy
sorry.
when their grandfather did pass away and their great grandmother within a week. You know what I mean? Like Phoenix and Ava, even though they were sad, like Phoenix would tell everyone, was like, oh well, the body's dead, but the spirit's with God. We'll see him one day. You know what I mean? And so she was still like not happy, but it made her feel better to let people know that she'll see her
Yeah.
grandpa one day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm definitely in the camp, I think, of sooner rather than later. But, how much sooner, I think, is just, again, there's different variables. So, but as far as it pertains to this film, in my opinion and my experience of the movie, yeah, I think it could have gone. It could have used some
Some more darkness.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And what else was there? What about the what did you think about the final after credit scene?
Oh yeah, great. Um. I mean, I'm just puzzled and curious about what the future holds for our beloved Star Lord. I I don't have great feelings about it. Number one, because I have not. I feel like this film was an exception to, again, most of what
Marvel's doing.
Marvel is doing. I mean, the most recent trailer, aside from, oh no, Blue Beetle is DC, right?
Yeah, it's DC.
So it was like what the Marvels
Yeah.
looks terrible. So
Well,
um, it does. I mean, that's just my opinion of the trailer. It looked terrible. Um, it could be great, but it looked terrible. That's all I'm saying. And I wasn't a big fan of that movie. Captain Marvel
yeah,
was a
I didn't.
terrible movie.
I didn't like Captain Marvel. I did like the show Miss Marvel. I watched with the
Okay.
girls, and that was enjoyable. And
Yeah.
so I think that character, I'm intrigued to see her around the other ones.
Yeah.
And disclaimer, I'm cool with Brie Larson. She looks cute, so I
Sure.
might be there for that.
All right. That's out there. Okay.
That's an eye roll
So-
for everyone out there. But
But anyway, so I do feel like this movie is kind of an exception to that, this Guardians movie. So that is not encouraging for me moving forward. But I do also feel like, I don't know, it just, to me, it kind of feels like Chris Pratt would be better served just walking away from this character at this point.
I think it's what James Gunn said the idea for a solo Star Lord movie, and this is what he would be the opposite of when you take a human into space and they're out of their element. Is now you're taking a person who's only lived in space since he was 8, and now you put him on Earth, and yeah, there's an adventure on Earth, but it's more he has to deal with the way like humans on Earth operating. He's not used to any of that, so it'd be like
So
a
it's
fish out
Elf.
of water.
It'd be
Yeah.
Elf.
Like Elf with lasers.
Yeah. No, I think he'd be better served just walking away from the character,
And
man, just
I-
laying it to rest.
I think the only thing that gives me hope is A, he doesn't have to do it if he doesn't like the script, and B, I don't like much he does, but Bob Iger like pulling back on everything, saying, "Hey, we've done way too much. We've been flooding everything. We need to pull back, and we're going to take our time making movies. We're not I think the guy who took over for him, Bob Chapek or whatever, he was just greenlighting everything. Hey, let's just do it.
Yeah.
And as much as Kevin Feige has done great with the original slate of movies that they did,
Mm-hmm.
I think he benefits from being reined in a bit,
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Hey, we're not. You can't do whatever you want. We're going to pull it back. We're going to switch it
Mm-hmm.
up, and like take your time developing these movies, not just pumping them out because your bosses want more content."
Yeah. Yeah. What was I gonna say?
Because
So
most of the movies in four that weren't that great were under the other guy, not Bob Iger.
right, is there any possibility of either a side project or a reboot with this sort of what was teased at the end as a new Guardians team
Well, that's
led by
very
Rocket Raccoon and Nebula?
that's very open. Is there a possibility? Yeah, you know what I mean. Is it likely? Probably not anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Because they would probably do a Star Lord. Like if anything, they would do Star Lord and maybe have Rocket and Groot visit him
Mm-hmm.
at the end or make an appearance. Because I definitely know Dave Bautista said he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Gamora's done. Like they don't want to do the makeup anymore. They're just over it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if a lot of them. I don't know if they would come back. You know what I mean? Without James Gunn. But like I said, that's why it's so open. Like, is there a possibility? Yeah, it's never zero.
He's done with Marvel, huh? He's gonna be DC now.
Who, Dave Bautista?
James Gunn.
Oh, James Gunn. Yeah, he's the head of DC, like co-head of
Right.
DC Films now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he is done. And then we'll
Okay.
see how he does when he's the. I don't have high hopes for the slate of projects they announced.
Superman, right?
Well, he himself is doing Superman, so I think that'll be great. I don't know how the other movies are going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he can't make every movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say the past few stuff I saw Peacemaker, I saw the Suicide Squad. I love them both.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I thought they were fun movies. I think Superman's going to be really great. I know the guy who's doing Flash is doing the Batman movie for the DC
Mm-hmm.
universe. And again, I haven't seen the Flash, so I can't judge it. But I didn't hear great things about it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot
Well,
of bad things.
well, besides Stephen King saying it's the greatest comic movie ever made, but that's Stephen King.
Um, didn't wasn't Tom Cruise raving about it as well at one point?
I don't know about that. Like I don't. I would have to look
He
at it.
was
But
look at it. I think he said like I've seen the Flash. It was awesome or something like that.
oh well,
He gave it like a good review.
yeah,
Which of this wave of Marvel movies? So I guess it's what post Endgame would it be?
yeah. Like Phase Four is
Which,
after Endgame.
which one has been your least? Which was the worst one in your eyes?
That I've actually seen.
Yeah,
I haven't been able to finish Thor: Love and Thunder.
dude, it's the worst. That's my worst one.
Uh,
It
like
is
I don't know if
horrible.
it's I don't like I'll probably like Quantum Mania if I see it because it's just who I am. So I can't judge the ones I didn't see, but I didn't even like Wakanda Forever. I didn't like I had, but at least I finished it.
Yeah,
I just haven't been able to finish Love and Thunder, which, and it could be because I think I just sat there. I was like, I have to revisit this because I love Ragnarok a lot.
Ragnarok is so good.
It's
Yeah,
amazing. So I was watching. I
yeah.
was like, I thought it was just me. I'm like, maybe I'm just not in the mood for this, but
No, it's really bad. I haven't seen Wakanda Forever. I didn't see Shang Chi. What
I
was
like
it?
Shang-Chi.
Wasn't there another one that came out? Or I heard Shang Chi's is pretty good. Wasn't there another one that came out like around Shang Chi, like a
Oh,
female led one?
the Eternals.
The Eternals. I didn't finish it. I didn't like it.
I haven't even watched. I go to start it. I'm like, I just feel like I'm not in the mood for a type of movie.
Um, the Doctor Strange one was terrible. Did not like Quantumania. So, but yeah,
And,
Love and Thunder was the worst one.
and I think the only one I would rate under that's a TV show. I tried watching She-Hulk and I could not. could not. I was like,
I,
people are raving about like this episode because Daredevil. I'm like, well, let me watch. I think I got through the opening. I was like, nope, this ain't for me.
apparently, Secret Invasion is the worst one.
I don't know, like
So I don't
I'm
know
gonna
if
say.
you've tried watching that.
Well, we've seen 3 out of the 6 episodes because then we wanted it to finish,
Is
and then
it?
we haven't gone back to it.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, the finale is like the worst. Um, so yeah, I mean, they haven't made good decisions, but it's hard to tell. I mean, yeah, that's without a doubt. But I personally do believe there's also a little bit of superhero fatigue involved with that. Now, I think as it relates to superhero fatigue, I think a great movie would immediately reverse that. But I think and I think not just fatigue from the audience, but I mean from the production companies. Just like with Star Wars, it's like, dude, just give it a break for a while. It's
Hmm.
just too much.
And I
And
think that's what it
it's
is. When you're rushing so much stuff
yeah,
to put out there, like creatively, like you think as a creator, like, oh, this is so original. I'm like, yeah, but we saw versions of that 2 other movies that were in production at the same time as you were,
yeah.
and that's why I think like when we're talking about TV shows, like you saw WandaVision, right?
That's the only show that I've
Yeah,
watched and
like
finished. Yeah,
I liked WandaVision because that was unique, that was creative.
yeah.
I did like the first Loki, season. Season 2 is about to come
Didn't you
out.
like Moon Knight?
Um, I liked Moon Knight. I just felt like it was just getting started when it finished. It took
Oh,
so
okay.
long to kick in. With the one I really liked that nobody seems to like, I really liked the Hawkeye series because again,
Oh,
it
okay.
felt different because it was just about Hawkeye. He's losing his hearing. He's having trouble, and then he meets this girl, and he doesn't want to train her. But then they start like building a relationship, and that just builds up. So I actually enjoyed that. But again, other than that, it just you start pushing so much stuff. You're just like, all right, I'm just getting a little.
Yeah,
I've seen different versions of what you're showing me.
yeah.
Like instead of watching
Daredevil, your
some of
favorite
the,
show?
oh, it's probably my favorite. It's really good. The first Daredevil. I
Did you
started
watch
season 1.
Punisher?
Oh yeah, like I watched
The
Punisher and I
John
liked.
Bernthal one?
Yeah, it had 2 seasons. I think I only seen season 1 though, and I
Mm.
liked it. It just I think I liked him better in Daredevil. Did you watch all of Daredevil or no?
No, I
Oh,
don't
see,
know
because
why I stopped, but yeah, I never finished it.
like him in season 2 of Daredevil, it gives him this more realistic, like gritty person going against this superhero. You know what I mean? And being against him with him type of thing. And I like that more. I watched the show and it was more gritty, more realistic. But I was like, all right, that's not I like seeing him in this world where he's thriving as opposed to he shouldn't be.
Hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Any last things you want to say before we wrap this up with some fun facts?
Ooh, let me see. Do I have anything else? Like I know after we start recording, I'm like, oh, I had all these I mean, things I wanted to talk about, but I think we covered everything. We went through everybody, right? We went through all the Guardians.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone we missed except Adam Warlock's little pet, but we don't need to talk about him.
What? Oh, well, since you're asking it, what was interesting too about Rocket Raccoon was that after he woke up from his close call with death, he also wasn't the same Rocket Raccoon. He was, like a person who had been through a near death experience. He was like a
Yeah.
lot more positive, and so again, I'm not complaining about that. Like I thought that was fine, but there's still a part of me that feels like I got gypped on the Guardians of the Galaxy movie without Rocket, the Rocket Raccoon that I know and
Yeah.
love.
Oh
So
yeah.
that was a
No,
little weird.
I will say though, come on, but it was a pretty cool scene when he was finally when he High Evolutionary kept calling him like P whatever. He's like the name's Rocket. raccoon because he finally accepts that he's a raccoon.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, that was
Yeah.
cool. There was another part that you had
Yeah, it
just
was cool.
mentioned, but yeah, like I said, I didn't feel gypped by him, but I do understand how they could have gone more. Oh, that's the one thing. I wish they would have ended his flashback series even when he left. You know what I mean? They could have just shown him being in space and how did he meet Groot? That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe coming upon the full-grown Groot already, and he's like, "Hey," and that they become friends because Groot maybe took him in at first, and now
Well,
he's raising Groot's son.
Raccoons make their homes in trees.
Oh,
That would have
That's
been
king.
interesting.
that is, yeah, because it would have been a cool dynamic that that Groot, older Groot, because apparently there are two different ones. The first Groot was taking care of Rocket, and they became friends and colleagues.
Mhm.
And then when he dies, like now he's raising Groot's son, Groot Junior,
Yeah.
Swole
Yeah.
Groot.
Hmm.
So, and then by the way, in Infinity War, when Groot disappears, he goes, "I am Groot." Like
Maybe.
what he says when he's disappearing is he goes, "Dad, help," and then he disappears. I was like, "Ooh."
How'd
I
you
just
learn
remember
that?
I think I read it like way back when I was reading up on the movie after it came out. Like I think James Gunn's like, yeah, or not James Gunn. One of the brothers were like, "Oh yeah, what that dialogue he's saying is Dad, help," and then he disappears.
And he's addressing Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah, because he's reaching for him, and then he gets dusted.
Mm,
So
nice. Good old Vin Diesel.
Vinny, as I call him.
Yeah.
So we ready?
I'm ready. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can surprise you with any of these.
Okay.
Not an easy task. Well, the first one's a trivia. I'm going to sandwich these facts with trivia. So the first one's trivia and the last one's trivia. Let's see how on the ball you are, Kevin. First one, released exactly 6 years after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 in 2017, this marks the longest gap between an MCU film and its sequel, surpassing the record set by what two other movies?
Between an original and a sequel?
Yeah, the longest time span in between. So this one was 6 years. The other two were 5 years and 6 months apart.
I would have to say, probably going to be wrong on these, but I'm going to go with Captain America 1 and 2.
That is incorrect. The answer is
Wait, I get
Doctor
one more.
Strange
Oh, okay.
and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, that was the biggest gap?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought there were two. Okay, those were the two movies. I thought there were two sequels that were the same distance apart.
No. We'll come back to trivia.
That was a good,
Next
that was a
fact.
good one. That was a good one.
Thanks. This film sets the record for the most makeup appliances used in a single film, having more than 23,000 prosthetics used across more than 1,000 actors.
Most of it was for Counter Earth, I bet.
Yeah. And for Nolan, probably.
Oh, true.
Okay. Nebula has a new nanotech weave arm in this film, which was an upgrade made for her by Rocket. Director James Gunn confirmed Rocket made this arm for Nebula to thank her for gifting him Bucky's detached vibranium arm in the holiday special.
I wish they would have said that in the movie.
I did like that scene from Nebula when she was like, yeah, I'm going to save Rocket Raccoon. Like, he made me this arm, and like that was a cool moment for her.
That was.
Another one.
You'll appreciate this one because I know you love this man. Nathan Fillion plays Master Karja. Fillion has appeared in each Guardians of the Galaxy film, each time playing a different role. In the first one, he voiced a CGI character named Monstrous Inmate, and
Yeah,
in Volume 2, he appeared on film posters in the background as actor Simon Williams, aka Wonder
Wonder
Man.
Man. That one I knew. Do,
All
do,
right.
do you know who he was in the first one?
I think they said he was a monster when they were doing like the lineup.
No, it's when they first show up and they want Peter Quill, and then I think Groot grabs him by the nostrils and lifts him up, and they
Oh
beat
yeah.
they toss him, and then that's when he's like, "This guy's our bounty." He goes, "Our booty. If you want him, you gotta go through us." Or more correctly, we go through you. That it's that guy. They throw.
Okay.
Sorry.
Excellent.
Another one.
This is the next round of trivia and final round of trivia for you. So far, you're 0 for 1. Let's see if you can even the score.
I'm the New York Giants. Let's go.
This is the third trilogy in the MCU to have the same director for all 3 films. What are the other 2?
There's 2 more trilogies that had the same director.
That's what I said.
Is that possible? That's not possible. That is not possible. I'm trying to think of all the trilogies, and I don't think I'm gonna get this because John Favreau didn't do 3; he did 2. I'm gonna be does Spider-Man count?
That's one of them.
Okay, so
2017 through 2021,
Okay.
directed by John Watts.
Okay, so I was like, we got that one, and I'm only gonna take 10 seconds. If I can't guess it, I will give up. I'm not gonna guess it. There's not. Yeah, because the Russo brothers did 2 Captain Americas and 2 Avengers, so I don't know it.
Ant-Man and the Wasp films, directed by Peyton Reed.
Oh, I should have known that one.
Valid attempt, though. I'm proud of you for trying. Those were tough.
Dude, Ant-Man didn't even come into my mind one time when I was thinking about it.
Yeah, I figured.
And I love 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right, so ratings time. Again, if you have stuck with us throughout this episode and you are a first timer, let me remind you, or let me inform you, that we do a 1 to 5 rating, Little Jerry's rating scale. 1 Little Jerry's, basically meaning that the movie was atrocious, and 5 Little Jerry's, saying that we loved it. So, Kevin, your pick, you're up first.
all right. My little ratings music. All right. Once more with feeling, as they say. This movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, brought to you by Mr. James Gunn. It's a movie that's fun. It's a movie that's good. It's enjoyable. They are, as in most movies, even the sci-fi comic book movies, suspend belief a little bit. Enjoy yourself. There's some cool things you'll see. It may seem long the first time. It seemed rather short every other time I've seen it. My kids liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a whopping 4 out of 5 because I would recommend it. I've watched it many times again, and it's been enjoyable every time I've seen it.
4 out of 5?
4 or cuatro de cinco.
All right, 4 out of 5 for this movie. That doesn't leave you much for like the movies that you really liked, like Ragnarok. So, assuming that you would give Ragnarok a 5 out of 5.
There's not. I wouldn't give Ragnarok a 5 out of 5, but it's good. It's a solid like 4.5, 4.75.
So
Like I
this
said,
is then
this-
pretty
I
much
told
on
you-
par with
I told you,
Ragnarok.
if those are like on level 1s, this is probably just right below. Like if we had like a 5 tier, like slot them in, this would
Mhm.
be in the tier right below them. Like, let's say there's Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. This is in the tier right underneath with the Wades and Tim Duncans and Olajuwons of the world.
Okay. Mm, yeah, I suppose that's fair. All right. For me, only having watched this once, again, felt a little long. Ultimately, I mean, I think it's what, like 2.5 hours. That's kind of long, but fine. But the fact that it felt long, I don't think speaks well to some of what was presented. Um, there were definitely some questionable choices, while also some things I really liked. Um, Definitely not as good as the first one. Um, uh, so this is this is a tough one for me. Hmm, I think that, am I itching to like run and watch this again? Not really. That doesn't mean I wouldn't watch it again though. But I'm
I,
not in
I
a
do
rush.
I
Huh?
do have something that may sway your opinion that I forgot to mention,
Okay, go ahead.
which I didn't realize until after you told me you had seen it, and I went to watch it again. Apparently, if you're going to watch this on Disney Plus, do not watch it on the IMAX enhanced version,
Hmm.
which is the default. You have to go down to versions and watch the theatrical release, because James Gunn said that's his preferred way. Because even though they filmed it in IMAX, like he specifically does things in the movie where it's smaller and then it gets bigger and it comes down again. And in IMAX, there it doesn't ever change its aspect ratio.
Hmm.
And as a filmmaker, he did it on purpose because when the scene's more impactful, whatever, it gets bigger and then it goes down. And he plays around with that as a movie maker. And IMAX, when you watch it IMAX enhanced, it just stays on the full frame. There is no like shrinking or
Hmm.
widening of the frame for like emotional reasons.
That's interesting. I wonder how much of a difference that would make. I definitely watched it on the default. So,
Which, yeah, because I had to, when I read it, I had to look it up and follow instructions because I was like, wait, what is it? And then I'm like, right when the play where it says play, you go down, it says extras and versions, and you would have to switch it out.
hmm, that's that's kind of infuriating, actually.
Because I remember thinking, like, I didn't mention it to you because I was like, oh, you already said you watched it. So there's like, we'll talk about it during the thing.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. That actually makes me want to rate it lower,
no, but now you
just
can
because
rewatch it.
that's annoying.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's not James Gunn's fault. That's Disney that did that.
yeah. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go with a 3.75 because, unlike you, who say that there's this top tier and then there's a lower tier where this fits. While I agree that there's a top tier, I don't think all the movies that I would have in that top tier are all fives, for example. Those
Huh.
also would vary in ratings. Probably somewhere between 4, 5. It's probably somewhere between 4 and 5. They just wouldn't all be fives.
Okay.
Um, and I don't think this one makes that list. It's still, like you, would be on a lower list. But 3.5 seems a little low, to be fair. So it's a 3.75 for me.
Okay.
3.75. Um,
I won't quibble over a quarter point. That's fine.
yeah. Yeah. So again, um, a better offering from Marvel, but the bar is pretty low at this point.
Yeah, and again, it may be just because we were in a desert of movies, and this
Yeah.
came out, and I was like, man, this was, like I said, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I mean these are fun, lovable characters that we've fallen in love with throughout many films. But it also, yeah, it does kind of feel like, and it's also so deceptive because they've only had two standalone films, right? But
Yes.
they've also made appearances in quite a few of the other films,
Yeah.
right? I mean, obviously, Infinity Wars and Endgame, but um,
And
what
Thor: Love and Thunder.
in Love and Thunder? Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. Yeah, in Love and Thunder. Then they had their holiday special and things like that. So yeah, they've been around a bit, um, and and so yeah, it seems like a time to kind of move on, and we'll see what happens next. As we discussed, maybe it's a Peter Quill standalone
Hmm.
movie with some cameos. Maybe it's a reboot with a new team. Who knows? We'll see.
And I think even if they don't, we don't see them again. I do feel this movie gave most of them, definitive resolutions where we're like, yeah, they're still in the universe, but now we know where everyone is and what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. So cool. All right, we will go ahead and nip this one in the bud. Kevin, thanks for the pick. Um, and so next episode again will be our season finale. It is our review number 30 for the season, although we've done more episodes than that with special episodes. But it will be the 30th film that we review in season 2. Then looking forward to a hiatus, and then hopefully coming back to review some more films as well as provide some more special episodes, trailer reactions, the sort
Some
of
other surprises in store.
some other surprises, and yet the same old buffoonery that you have come to expect from us. And I guess the biggest um, what do you call it, cliffhanger is, will we see Mark again?
Oh, Jube Jube.
We don't even know. So we're we're in suspense just as much as our audience. But anyway, like I said at the beginning, please make sure you follow us, subscribe, like, add us, comment, write us an email if you'd like. Go to our website and check out posters for all the films that we've reviewed and the ratings for every film that we've reviewed. Um, let us know if you want us to give you a film recommendation or if you have a film that you want us to check out and review. Don't hesitate to interact with us or even to give us a nice pat on the back. We always appreciate that as well. We pat ourselves on the back all the time, but it's nice to get the feel of another human being sometimes, even if it's just metaphorically. So anyway,
I
with
love the
that being
feeling.
said, my pick next. Excited for that. Thank you for listening. Don't stop believing.
I
I'm
am
out.
Groot.
Later,
Later.
haters.